Okay, Baruch Hashem. Wow, with the new Kabbalah Satoira, noch Shevuos. It's a whole different world. It's a whole vaccine.
Don't use that term.
The vaccine, don't use the doctor says don't use the term. Yeah.
Okay. This is a four.
Baruch Hashem. Okay. Shulam Aleichem, everybody. We're up to Daf Lamed Ches, Omed Aleph, Masechta Shevuos. We're inching toward the end, slowly but surely. Another 11 blat. The second line, Apikoden Shevuos, Apikoden Keitzad. Tenli Apikoden Sheyesh Leviyotcha. The Mishnah brought a couple of examples of Shevuos Apikoden, right? Tonu Rabbanon. A Braisa. Kolal, if a person was Koilel, he generalized all of his denials into one Shavua, to one Amira, Ein Chayiv ala achas. He's only Chayiv on one carbon. Parat, if he specified each Kfira on its own, then Chayiv al kalachas v'achas. Div Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is very vague, by the way, in what a klal is, what is kolal, and what is parat. We'll see in a moment. It's going to be machlokes about what Rabbi Meir means. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Shavua loy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha. Right? 5 people are demanding, give these back our pekodin. And he says, Shavua loy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha. I don't have your carbon. He makes a Shavua for each one. Chayiv al kalachas v'achas. He's chayiv a carbon, a separate carbon in each one. It's a separate Shavua, a separate kfira. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer, loy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha. Shavua, chayiv al kalachas. You need the Shavua at the end. And then the Shavua goes in each one. It's not enough to say Shavua in the beginning. If Shimon is most makel, he says, you're not chayiv until you mamish say Shavua for each one separately. Okay. Omar Rabbi Shmuel. Kloloi shel Rabbi Meir, proto shel Rabbi Yehuda. Kloloi shel Rabbi Yehuda, proto shel Rabbi Meir. What does this mean? It means like this. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says, Shavua loy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha. He's chayiv on each one separately. Why? Because that's parat. He says to each one, veloy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha. Yeah, Shavua loy lecha, veloy lecha. Each one has the veloy lecha. So Rabbi Yehuda says the vav links the original Shavua that he said at the beginning to each one. So it's a separate Shavua for each one. That's how Rabbi Yehuda understands parat. Says Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel, that kilolei shel Rabbi Yehuda, that's protesh Rabbi Meir, protesh Rabbi Yehuda is kilolei shel Rabbi Meir. Okay, so it means like this. That the prat of Rabbi Yehuda, the case of Rabbi Yehuda says that each one is chayiv on each one, that would be a klal according to Rabbi Meir. Which means what? That according to Rabbi Meir, the example of Shavua, loy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha, is a klal. You know why? Because the vav links all of them together into one Shavua. So he mamish is an opposing view with Rabbi Yehuda. Whatever Rabbi Yehuda considers parat, he considers a klal. And vice versa, the klal of Rabbi Yehuda is the prat of Reb Meir. What is the klal of Rabbi Yehuda? When you don't say the vav, veloy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha. The klal of Rabbi Yehuda is when you say loy lecha, loy lecha, loy lecha, loy lecha. That's the klal, and according to Rabbi Meir, that will be a prat, and you'll be chayav kol achas v'achas. Okay, so interesting way to put the machloikas. They're mamish on opposite extremes. Whatever is a klal according to Rabbi Meir is a prat according to Rabbi Yehuda. Whatever is a klal according to Rabbi Yehuda is a prat according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yochanan Omer hakoil moedem beveloy lechashu prat. It's not true. Everybody, Bein Rabbi Meir, Bein Rabbi Yehuda agree that when you add a vav, you say Shavua in the beginning, you add a vav for each one. Shavua loy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha, veloy lecha. That's avada is chayiv each one. Lanech lecha veloy lecha, without a vav. Rabbi Meir Omer prat. Rabbi Meir says that's also a prat. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, that's a klal. He's only chayiv one carbon for that. The ezu klal Rabbi Meir. So if Rabbi Meir considers both a prat with a vav or without a vav, what's the klal according to Rabbi Meir? The klal is the generalization of shvua she'en lechem biyadi. That would be the klal according to Rabbi Meir. On that, you'll be chayiv one carbon, even if you deny a bunch of people. Since you summed it up in one sentence, in one shavua, that would be the klal according to Rabbi Meir. But if you would specify each one loy lecha, loy lecha, loy lecha, even without a vav, that would also be a prat. Rabbi Yehuda holds it's only a prat if you add a vav. But my kemiflik is Shmuel daik mebraisa. Rabbi Yochanan daik mesnisin. So we have a machlikas amiroim exactly what the machlikas tanoim is. So what's the machlikas amiroim? How did Shmuel get to his conclusion that the machlikas is prat of Rabbi Meir's klal of Rabbi Yehuda and the prat of Rabbi Yehuda is the klal of Rabbi Meir? How did he get to that? He was daik from a brisa. And Rabbi Yochanan was madaik his explanation of the machlikas from a mishnah. Shmuel daik mebraisa the Omar. The brisa says, but the Omar Rabbi Yehuda veloy lecha prat havi. Since Rabbi Yehuda says the case of veloy lecha is a prat, mechlal the shamei Rabbi Meir the Omar klal havam. must be the reason why Rabbi Yehuda says v'loy lecha is a prat, because he's arguing with Rabbi Meir, because he heard Rabbi Meir say on that's a klal. So Rabbi Yehuda is explaining that's a prat. Rabbi Yochanan Tavayla Rabbi Meir prat even. No, both according to Rabbi Meir are prat. Loy lecha v'loy lecha v'loy lecha, whether it's a vav or without a vav, it's all a prat according to Rabbi Meir. V'omelei Rabbi Yehuda, when Rabbi Yehuda counters back and he says v'loy lecha is a prat, he says my dinalach, I agree with you in this case that it's a prat. With a vav, right? With a vav, I agree with you. But beloy lecha, without a vav, palignalach. On that, I'm choylek, right? So that's how Rabbi Yochanan understands the brisa. That's why he argues with Shmuel. But as Shmuel says, no. What do you mean? Why would Rabbi Yehuda choose to specify what he's moida to Rabbi Meir on? Until he's explaining what he's moida to Rabbi Meir, it would be more helpful if he tells him on which point he argues with him. So if Hitaka argues with him, then he should have said what he argues on him. Must be that Hitaka does say what he argues on him, and v'loy lecha is a machlokes. In other words, Rabbi Meir will hold that that's a klal, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that's a prat. Yes, according to Shmuel, right, there's a machlokes on two. Yeah. Prat of Rabbi Meir is klal of Rabbi Yehuda, and the prat of Rabbi Yehuda is klal of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yochanan says no. They only have a machlokes with regard to one case. Daik masnisen. He's medayik from the Mishnah. They're only choylek on the case of v'loy lecha. The Rabbi Meir shvush ein lecha biyadi klal hava mechlal the v'loy lecha prata hava. Once Rabbi Meir says that the klal in the Mishnah is shvush ein lecha biyadi, right? How do we know that the Mishnah is Rabbi Meir? How do you know that's Rabbi Meir? Yeah, how do we know that's Rabbi Meir? Fashtas, because Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. That's why. Rashi already points out right away. Stam Mishnah Rabbi Meir. That's how we know that it's Rabbi Meir. So when the Ka'omer Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yochanan says, our Mishnah, since Rabbi Meir is the one who says in our Mishnah, because Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, Shavuot she'en lechem biyodi klal hava, it's a klal. Mechlal de v'loy lecha, prat hava. So if that's the klal, so anything else would be a prat. V'loy lecha would be a prat. Yisrael kedaitach. V'loy lecha klal hava, the mashmal she'en lechem biyodi, Shavuot she'en lechem biyodi is a klal, nashmina Shavuot she'en lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha. In Koshkin Shavuot she'en lechem biyodi, give me the bigger chiddush, that v'loy lecha is a prat. Why is he, is a klal? Why is he giving me the chiddush of the lesser chiddush of Shavuot she'en lechem biyodi? So must be that according to Rabbi Meir agrees that v'loy lecha is a prat. He agrees to that. Otherwise, he should have said that that's a klal. Why is he saying Shavuot she'en lecha biyodi is a klal? That's Rabbi Yochanan explains, right? Shmuel says, Kala omer v'loy lecha, ka omer Shavuot she'en lecha biyodi dam. You know, that's not a kasha, because v'loy lecha is just like Shavuot she'en lecha biyodi dam. It's not a bigger chiddush than Shavuot she'en lecha biyodi, because you have a vav hachibul. The vav hachibul is generalizing it all. Right, is a prat. Right. The only machlokes is by lo lecha without a vav. Without a vav. Yes. Correct. Yes. Lecha lecha lecha, the song, very good. Yeah, I was like, where do I know this theme from? Yeah. So bottom line, just to summarize, right? So according to Rabbi Yochanan, the machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is by lo lecha without a vav. According to Rabbi Meir, that would be a prat. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, that would be a klal. Oh, he does the arch calls a table? Yeah, you have a table. Oh, okay, very good, very helpful. Oh, very nice. Okay, that's very helpful. Okay, keep looking back in the Gemara. Okay, so Shmuel says the machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is twofold, right? By lo lecha v'lo lecha, Rabbi Meir says a klal, Rabbi Yehuda says a prat, and lo lecha is the opposite, right? Rabbi Meir says a prat, Rabbi Yehuda says a klal. Rabbi Yochanan says that they both agree on the vav. They both agree on the vav that it's a prat. The shaila is whether without a vav is a prat or a klal. Okay, wow, super helpful. Thank you, Rabbi Artscroll. Okay, Zug the Gemara, Kasha and Shmuel. Tanan, we'll look at Mishnah, Loy lecha v'loy lecha v'loy lecha, right, is a prat. So how could you say that according to Rabbi Meir, v'loy lecha is a klal? What do you mean? The Mishnah said it's a prat. And says the Gemara, Tni loy lecha, eliminate the vav. According to Shmuel, you have to eliminate the vav because the Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. So you have to match Rabbi Meir according to Shmuel's understanding with the Mishnah. So illuminate the vav, and that's why it's a prat. Okay, so the Gemara weiter Toshama a raya, right, against Shmuel. It says in the Mishnah, right, he adds a vav to each one, and that's his chayv a carbon, and each one gets a prat. According to Rabbi Meir, the way Shmuel understands Rabbi Meir, that's a klal. So why is it chayv in each one? Says the Gemara, no, tenu tzimas yad gezel aveda. Don't be gurus the vav in the Mishnah. It's without a vav, and that's why it's a prat. Toshama ten lechit nesarim v'kusmin. Yeah, if you add a vav to each one, then he's chayiv al kol achas v'achas. But according to Shmuel's understanding of Rabbi Meir and Stam Mishnah's Rabbi Meir, that should be a klal, not a prat. So why is he chayiv al kol achas v'achas? There's a vav. So Gemara says tani sa'orin kusmin. Yeah, don't be gurus the vav. Gemara says v'hai tani kol hachi shavish tani v'azal. What do you mean? So he made that many mistakes? He mamash was he said a vav in all these cases, and now we have to eliminate the vav. He made a mistake in all these cases. Elohim mani Rabbi. So the Gemara says no, it must be that this Mishnah, Shmuel will tell you the Mishnah is Rabbi. The Omar Rabbi holds by pigul when a kohen thinks of machshavas psulais b'shas akravas carbon, which disqualifies, invalidates the carbon. So he says loish nekazayis v'loish nekazayis ukazayis. It's no difference if he thinks a machshava psula lagaba one kazayis from the basar carbon, right? He's going to eat it chutz l'zman or chutz l'makaymai, or he adds another kazayis. What? Pigul is only chutz l'zmanoi?
There's difference between pigul and basal.
Okay. But either way, the carbon becomes disqualified, no?
Yeah.
Okay. So either it's chutz l'zman or chutz l'makaym, he has a machshava psula, so it's loish nekazayis, loish nekazayis, ukazayis. It doesn't matter if he had a vav in his machshava, he added a vav in his machshava. It doesn't matter if he didn't add a vav in his machshava. Right? Amazing. You have to know exactly how you think. I don't know, when I grew up speaking Yiddish, my first language. So for a long time, I was thinking in Yiddish and speaking in English. People would tell me, like, so what language do you think in? Yeah? So some people, even if they speak a second language, they're thinking in their mother tongue, in their first language. Which language are you thinking? Hebrew, yeah? Techashev b'ivrit. Yeah. Even today. Because you speak mostly English. Doesn't matter.
Mostly English, but I think
The Mamalushan is Ivrit. Very interesting.
People who have strokes, they forget their later language and they revert back to their childhood.
Wow.
Because the deep part of the brain retains old memories.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know. This is one of the mysteries of the brain. You're a neurologist, doctor. Maybe you could explain that you remember machshavas from 80 years ago, but what happened yesterday you can't remember.
Because
the older
Stronger imprint?
The older you get.
memories.
But why? Why? What's the hesber?
Because there's certain areas of the brain that are specific for remote memories, and different areas of the brain for immediate and recent memories. The immediate is working them within minutes to an hour, and there's recent memory is in hours to days, and then there's remote memories that are from weeks to years.
So, but when you had that memory, when that memory was created when you're 5 years old, it was a immediate memory, wasn't it? Because it just happened. So how does it become remote?
Because it gets absorbed in the brain, like
It gets absorbed.
Ride a bicycle. And you remember how to ride a bicycle? It's not just
It seeps in.
it stays inside.
Right.
To drive.
So it makes total sense. Okay, it makes complete sense. Okay. Shkeich for that hesber. We get some. Yeah. Wow. Elohamani Rabbi. This is Rabbi the Omar. Loishne kazayis, kazayis, loishne kazayis, ukazayis, protahava. They're both a prat. That's Rabbi. That's what you see by machshavas pigul. It passels each kazayis. Whether you said ukazayis, you thought ukazayis, or you thought without a vav. Amazing, amazing that machshava, right, is so, did you think it with the vav or without a vav? It's amazing. Amazing concept. Did you think it with a vav or without a vav? I don't know, to me it's like,
How are they going to listen to this?
you have to be so responsible for your machshavas.
Yeah, but they have to listen from him. They can't read his mind.
Right.
To verbalize.
No, the machshava was, it's machshava psula.
משנה את הכל. אז רגע, בפיגול,
Yeah.
איך זה בפיגול?
He's chayiv on each kezayis that he thought of eating chutz l'zman or chutz l'mekayma. You know why? Because each kezayis is a separate chiyav. It doesn't matter if he said ukazayis, 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 he thought ukazayis or without a vav. Each one is separate. Which one is what? What'd you ask? A kol kezayis a kezayis shu chashav shu yachol et ze chutz l'zman or chutz l'mekayma hu chayav benefrad. פיגל זה במחשבה. איך תדע? הוא רוצה לעשות תשובה. הוא רוצה לעשות תשובה באמת, אז הוא יגיד לך. Yeah, but he's asking good. How do you know? What are you going to put him to a lie detector test?
I learned that people say that he mobilizes.
Oh, but pigel happens with machshava. I think that it's not a dibur. So he says, if he thought on every kazayas, how are you going to know what he thought and how many kazaysim he thought on? He's going to have to. That's part of his tshuva. Huh?
He's going to have to admit.
You have to admit. But I'm saying he's going to have to admit the intricacies of his machshavas. Like, was it with a vav or without a vav? Like, who pays attention?
It's a coin. A coin is zaris. That's the way they live. They live for the.
Amazing concept. But the fact that he's held responsible and accountable for every letter of his machshava. That's the dikduk halacha over here. That it has to be Rebbe because Rebbe says, with a vav, without a vav, it doesn't matter. But taka, let's say it would be Rebbe Meir, according to Shmuel, then pigel would only happen, right, on every prat and prat if there was no vav. Right? If there was a vav, it would be a klal. And then, that would be unbelievable.
What would be his punishment for pigel?
What's the punishment for pigel? Chorus. Yeah.
Trickle down to death after that. Yeah, I guess it would be scary. Yeah, I guess if somebody is really has yirat shamayim, it's scary.
Yeah. The Chedush Harim says in Rashi, in Tzav ain't Tzav el lashon zirus. Why? Because oila. Why is there a zirus? Because yesh bechisaron kiss. There is an oila, carbon oila. The Kahanim don't enjoy from it. So anytime you don't get an enjoyment, we have to be mezagaz you to do the avodah anyway. So that's why it's lashon tzav by carbon oila. So Lisharim teaches how oila comes from machshavas psulas, machshavas pigel. I don't mean pigel in the regular sense. Yeah, when you bring a carbon of machshavas. So he says, what kind of carbon does a oila come for? For anything sheyesh boy chisaron kiss. There's no cover for machshavas. Yeah, you can't control thoughts. You can't stop thoughts, right? You can stop listening to lashon hara by going like this. The Gemara in Ksuba says that you have the earlobe, you can put it in, right? Or you have the eyelids, you can close your eyes. You have the lips to close your mouth. You have a double guard with your teeth, but you don't have a kiss for machshavas. So Chishim teaches that oil is a carbon that comes for machshavas. And what is the machshava?
Kiss.
A mokem sheyesh bo chisaron kiss. En sha mashu shechol lechasot et machshavot. You can't cover your thoughts, which is quite interesting because if you think about it, what requires the most shmira, right? Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishlei, Mikol mishmer nitzar libecha, that you should guard from everything you guard. Mikol mishmer, from whatever you guard, nitzar libecha, guard your machshavas, guard your mind. Right? So how could it be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created guards for all of our chushim, but the most important, the driving force behind all of it, there's no kiss. And efshar, there's no kiss.
He said also,
Shoyme mitzoros nafshay. Right.
Someone who practices watching what comes in his mouth, goes out of his mouth,
yeah.
he is the person
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And the mouth is one chush, but the thought drives that's the control room. That's the control room. That's the situation room. So why didn't Hashem create the kiss? Something, imagine if every time you put on your yarmulke, you can cover your thoughts and you don't have negative thoughts. That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
You get more schar. He wants to give you a simple carpet.
Right. This is, Tzaddik says, the main Milchemes HaYetzer happens in the mind, is machshavas. That's the main Milchemes HaYetzer. People think Milchemes HaYetzer is diburim, re'iyos, asuros. It starts with a machshava. Ken? Ayin gorem. Ayin roye v'lev choymet. So why does it say "L'sesiru achar levavchem v'acharei einechem"? Why is it levavchem first?
הלב רוצה לראות. הלב זה רוצה לראות.
כן, אז הוא רואה. So the control room is the lev, is the mind.
אז ברגע שהוא רוצה
כן, ברגע שהוא רואה, אז עכשיו לב חומד. Now it starts the whole cycle. But it all starts with the mind, and for some reason there's no kiss. There's no cover for the mind, but you know what there is? You know, you cannot stop thoughts, but you can replace thoughts. That's one tactic, right? That we can have is we can control our thoughts not by stopping them, but by replacing them. Which is why Barasi Yitzhahara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. Torah is the way to combat the Yitzhahara. The Mechemes Yetzer, that is in the Machshavas, because what you're doing when you're coming into the Daf, or you're opening a Gemara, or you're listening to a shiur, is you're replacing those thoughts. That's the only way, right? If I tell you, don't look at the sign on Beverly, everybody's going to look, right? Don't. Doesn't work. But if I tell you, let me tell you a chiddush, right? Now, you're not going to look. Yeah.
You know how many times, people, תגיד מה, לא ראית? לא שמתי לב. מה זה לא שמתי לב? I did not pay attention.
Yes.
I did not.
That's
my
right.
Heart, I don't pay attention to stuff because my heart
doesn't want to look.
Exactly.
Doesn't want to look. Right. And when don't you pay attention? When your mind is busy with kedusha. That's the eitzah is.
That's the famous Gemara with Rav Kahana and Rav Asi. Right? He said your partner because
Libach hanasach, right? Ha'odam b'shvua, yeah. You're preoccupied, right? Or you thought that what you said was true.
I agree.
Right. Okay, so that's the avoida of machshavas pigel. Okay, Toshima.
Same way, if you don't have, you're going to have some habits. If you don't have good habits, you're going to have bad habits.
Correct. Yeah. Replace it. You have to replace it. You can't just stop the bad habit. You have to replace it with a good habit. That's true. That's absolutely true. Okay, so more weiter. Toshima medidei. Rabbi Meir Roimer. I'll bring a raya, not like Shmuel, from Rabbi Meir himself. Rabbi Meir Roimer, afilu chitas ayir v'kusem, as the Mishnah says, even if a guy's teveya. Oh, Nathan just came, just in time for this Toshima. Gavaldi. Toshima, a raya, not like Shmuel, medidei, from Rabbi Meir himself. In our Mishnah, Rabbi Meir Roimer, Rabbi Meir says, afilu ten chitas ayir v'kusem, even if a guy says, yeah, come, give me back my chitas ayir v'kusem, chayiv al kol achas v'achas. And what do you see from over here? That over here says a vav achibur, chita uso oire v'kusemes, and yet he considers it prat. He considers it kolachas v'achas. That's not like Shmuel and Rabbi Meir. Shmuel and Rabbi Meir says that's a klal. Gemara says ni chita so oire kusemes. So learn without a vav. So Gemara says maya filu. So what's the chiddush abazoi of Rabbi Meir? Omer Rav Achav the chiddush is afilu chita b'chlal chita so oire b'chlal so oire v'kusemes b'chlal kusmen. Just because he said a singular chita, right? So you were translated as one kernel of wheat, which is probably less than Shava Pruta, and therefore you wouldn't be chayiv on Shevuos Apikon because it's not koi for a moment Shava Pruta. Chiddush is no. When he says chita, it means chitin. So oira means oiran. Kusemes means kusmin. So mamela, the tvia is on a plural, on a lot of chitin, even though his lashon is singular. Okay, zuving more weiter. 2 dots. Lamed ches. Tenli pekodin etzumas yad gezel va'aveda sheyesh li biyadcha. Mishnah says that if a guy's teveya from a friend, his pikadon, the pikadon that he gave to him, or halva, or gezler aveda, and he denies it, he's chayav kolachas v'achas. If he says each one again in the shvuah, he's chayav kolachas v'achas. If he says shvuah shein chabiyadi klum, then he's only chayav one. If he repeats each one separately, he's chayav in each one. Omer Rabbi Yochanan, pruta mikula mitztarefes. Now we know by Shevuos Apikadon, in order to be chayav in Shevuos Apikadon, you have to refuse, or you have to deny, you have to lie about at least a shava pruta to be chayav. Right? If it's less than a pruta, then it's not mammon. Halachically, it's not considered mammon, and therefore you would be potter. What if you had a pruta from the different tviyas adding up together? Let's say chitin, so oirin and kusman. You have a quarter of a pruta by a chitin, and you have a quarter of a pruta of sa'ir and kusman. So you have between all four, it'll equal combined. It'll equal to a pruta. It's mitzdaref. If you chayiv one carbon. Pligabar v'acharavin. Another halacha in the Mishnah over here, when it says that you're chayiv when you say Shevuos she'en lecha b'yad chitim sa'ir v'kusman, how many are you chayiv? Right? Are you chayiv 3 or 4? A proti mechayev, a kloli loy mechayev. You chayev on the chitin, shiur, the kusman that you mentioned. Each one, you mefaret each one separately. So you chayev in each one. But a kloli loy mechayev. There's room to say perhaps you should be chayev for the Shevuah. The word Shevuah that generalized all these together, that tied all of these together, that should be considered a separate Shevuah. So the Gemara says, one Manda Omer says, no, a kloli loy mechayev. You only chayev 3. The Chad Omer, a kloli non mechayev. You also chayev on the first Shevuah, she'en l'cha biyadi. That's considered a separate Shevuah. And you chayev 4. Says the Gemara Vatani Reb Chia. Gemara says a kasha. Reb Chia in the Brisa says if you have 5 people teveya, chitin sa'ir and v'kusmin, how many are you chayiv? And you respond Shevuah she'en l'cha biyadi chitin sa'ir and v'kusmin v'loy l'cha to each one. So you add it up. Harei ken chamesh esrei chatois. It's 15 chatois altogether, right? Because you have 5 people. Each one is asking 3 chitin sa'ir and v'kusmin, and you denied each one separately for the 3. So 3 times 5 is 15. If it's true that you also chayiv on the first word of Shevuah she'en l'cha biyadi before you said chitin sa'ir v'kusmin, that would be 4. So 5 times 4 would be esrim avim, would be 20. Yeah. Gemara says, "I Tana the proti k'chashav the klal loy k'chashav." You're right. You'd be actually 20, but this Tana is just telling you, as far as the proti are concerned, you'd be chayiv 15. But avad you'd chayiv the other 5 as well for the klal. But Tana Reb Chia arekan esrim chatois. Now the Gemara asks on the other Tana, in the case where you're koifer 5 people, chitin sa'ir v'kusmin, you chayev 20 chatois because it's arbe kfiris l'chol echad ve'echad. Why? Because you said Shevuah, that's 1. Then chitin sa'ir v'kusmin, that's another 3. So it's 4, and 4 times 5 is 20. So it's a kasha on the mandamah that says a kloli loy mechayev. Answers the Gemara, yeah, pikod netzim az yod v'gezl v'aveda. He's only oisik on. He's going on a different case where he denied 4 separate things of pikod netzim az yod gezl v'aveda, which is 4, not chitin sa'ir v'kusmin. So memela, you don't have a raya that a kloli mechayev. Boy, many Rav Nachman. A shayla Rav asked Rav Nachman. 5 people are teveya. Va'amru loy, and they said in ten l'pekad tzumas yad gez laveda. Sheyesh lo nabiyotcha. You have, each one claims that this guy has 4 items that they have to return, that he has to return to them. Pikod tzumas yad, which is alva, gez lo naveda. All right. So between the 5, right, it's 5 times 4. There are 20 claims altogether. Omer le'echad men Shevuah she'en l'cha biyadi pikadoin tzumas yad gez laveda v'loy l'cha v'loy l'cha v'loy l'cha v'loy l'cha. Mahu, what's the halacha? Achad mechayev, since he only said v'loy l'cha after he said pikod tzumas yad gez laveda, he didn't specify the pikod tzumas yad gez laveda 5 times. He only said it once, first time, and then he said v'loy l'cha v'loy l'cha v'loy l'cha. So maybe he's only chayev 1 carbon for each v'loy l'cha, because that's a kfira klalis, right? Or oidilma kol choda v'choda mechayev, or maybe he's chayev for each one on each of the pratim, because v'loy l'cha is misyachis to the 4 pratim that he said originally of Shevuah she'en l'cha biyadi pikod tzumas yad gez laveda.
It's like 5 guys gave him 4 objects.
5 guys, each one gave him 4 objects. So really he's being koifer between all of them 20. But the way he articulated the Shevuah was, he specified to the first guy, Shevuah she'en l'cha biyadi pikod tzumas yad gez laveda. Then he went to the other 4 guys, v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha. Do we consider the v'loy l'cha going on the pratim, and it's like he's koifer to each one, each prat? Or do we say, no, the rest for v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha, that's a klaus. So each one is only...
He's not a liar on each of the other parts.
He's a liar on all of it.
Why is he lying on all of them?
That's the case. The case is 5 people are demanding. Each one says, I gave you pikadon, you stole from me, you have an aveda from me, and I lent you money.
Each
right?
one of these 5 people, he did it 4 different...
Yeah, each of these 5 people gave him 4, says you have 4 different items of mine.
He did 20 mice.
Yeah, right, so must have been very busy. He stole 20 times.
Or is it-
But when he swore, the Shevuos sheker, he only enumerated to the first guy, Shevuah she'en l'cha biyadi pikadon tzumas yad gez laveda, and the other 4 guys, he said, v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha, v'loy l'cha.
Isn't the 5 of them, there's 4 objects total, or are there 20 objects?
20 objects total.
That's why the Chachamim must out.
Each guy
He's got to give 4 objects.
claims,
and it's
you have my pikadon, you owe me money, you stole from me, and you didn't return my aveda.
One of them has 4 claims.
Otherwise,
Yes.
listen.
20 claims altogether.
It's not just 4
I do the chad, I'm going to give for. Meantime, I stole 20, so I made money. So they have to mechayev him.
Because 5 people can give the same object together as a proof.
No, it's like that's the case is that 20. There are 20 objects that are being 20 separate objects. Each one is claiming 4. So now, but he's only chayav b'shuas sheker if he makes a shavu on each one. But he didn't make a shvuah on each one. What he did was, he made a shvuah to the first guy saying, I don't owe you pikadon, which means
Same thing to you guys.
and the same thing to each of you. So when we say the same thing to each of you, do we say, oh, each of you meaning pikadon tzumas yad gezel aveda? In other words, the shvuah is as if you made a shvuah on each prat and prat for each guy, and you chayiv 20 karbanos at the end. Or for the other 4 guys, it was a shvuah klolis of v'loy lecha. Right? He's only chayiv on the first guy's pikadon tzumas yad gezel aveda, 4 on the first guy. That's the shayla. Where's this Toshama? I'll bring you right from the Brisa. The Tani Reb Chia. Chia says, Harei kan esrim chatois. You got to bring 20 chatois. Hey Chadomi, what's the case of Reb Chia in the Brisa? Eat the farish, right? If he was mefaret each one separately for each of the guys, said pikadon tzumas yad gezel aveda for you, pikadon tzumas yad gezel aveda for you. So Reb Chia minyanos lashmina. What's the chiddush? He's just trying to tell me numbers. He's adding up for me. I mean, maybe me. I'm not good at math, but but l'chayra, yeah. Plus, addition and subtraction that I still I know. I think by division that stopped. I went to, not to blame Hasidic schools. I played hooky, so didn't really go to class.
Division's tough.
What?
Division
is tough. Yeah. The only division I know. I grew up in Williamsburg, Division Avenue. Reb Chia minyan os lashminan. Elalav deloy parish must be that he wasn't a farish to each one separately. The case is mamash. This case, Reb Chia in the Brisa is talking about this case where he said to the first guy, "Shvuah she'en lecha biyad pikadon tzumas yad gezel aveda," and then he said, "V'lo lecha, v'lo lecha, v'lo lecha, v'lo lecha." So shma mina prata. So you see 20 karbanis, which means that v'lo lecha is considered a prat for each one, and so he's kaifer on each item separately. So there are 20 karbanis total. Okay. Zukt the heilige Gemara weiter. We learned in the Mishnah. Nasta fati says biti. Person says to his friend, "You're ma'anas mafata, my daughter." And what's the halacha? Halacha is ma'anas mafata needs to pay a knas. I believe it's 50 shekel, right? You have to pay 50 shekel to the father. Beyond that, you also have to pay boishas apgam. So the 50 shekel is a knas. Boishas apgam is moment. That's a monetary payment, right? The difference is if the guy would run to Bezdin and be moida on his aveira, on his crime, he would admit, then he would be potter from the 50 shekel, because that's a knas moida, knas potter, but he would be chayiv and boishas apgam. So we have machloikis in our Mishnah between the Chachamim and Reb Shimon, whether he is chayiv or potter.
Why is he potter if he runs a based in the midst to it?
We learn it from the pasuk, Asher Shian Alehim Prat Lamarshiyas Atzmai. Anytime he convicts himself, then he's not chayiv. Oh, but he's still chayiv on the boishas apgam. He's still chayiv on, right? So there's a machloikus in the Mishnah whether you're chayiv. So Reb Shimon says you're potter, and Rabbana say you're chayiv because boishas apgam is moment. Maybe you're potter on the knas, but you're still chayiv to pay boishas apgam, right? And if you swore on that, so you're kaifer in moment. So you'd be chayiv on Shevuos sheker. So what's the machloikus? Amar B'chi Rabbi Yoel Gold. My time with Reb Shimon. What's the reason? Why does Reb Shimon pater this guy who denies that he ever did anything and he swears falsely? He paters him from Hasham Gzelis. There's also kfir on moment on boishas apgam. So he should still be mechuyev because he denied in the boishas apgam the moment. So why is he pater from a carbon? Says the Gemara, Hoyel v'ikir knas u'toveyam. The father is really coming to collect the 50 shekel. He's coming to collect the knas. So since he's coming to collect the knas, the ikir tviyah is on the knas. So the kfira is on the knas as well, and therefore you're not chayiv a carbon. The kfir is on whatever the tviyah is on. So the tviyah is on the knas, so therefore he's not chayiv a carbon because it's not called mammon. Knas is not mammon. In order to be chayiv a carbon and Shevuos sheker, you have to be kaifer b'tviyas mammon. Omer Rava, mashal b'shimon l'mad avadami. What's a mashal? Adam shem l'chaveiroi. Tell me chitnesayim because b'shech l'biyadcha. Omar loi Shevuos she'en l'cha biyadi chitin. The shtaker the chitin or the lesley. He doesn't have chitin. Hosa'oyer the chusmin islay the potter. Then he'd be potter. Why did he shtabe chitin? Akushtem shtabe. He was right. He swore emes when he said, I don't have chitin. That's not a good mashal to our case. Hasan b'chitin kekafrlei. Right? Over there, he's denying chitin. Right? And it turns out he's right. He never had chitin. And b'sa'oyer v'chusman like kekafrlei. Right? But over here, he's denying him even the boishas apgam that he owes him. So l'chayra, it wouldn't be a good mashal to say that that's why he would be potter. Holidamia, Abai says, if you want to make a good mashal to this case, to Reb Shimon's case by Knas and boishas apgam, you have to say similar to the following scenario. He makes a generalized shvuah. He says, I have nothing, I never met you, I don't know you, you gave me nothing. And then they found that he doesn't have chitin. Then he's vada chayiv a carbon. Why? Because the shvuah was countering the claim of chitin sa'ir v'kusman. So even though chitin is right, he doesn't have chitin, but the sa'ir v'kusman he does have, and the shvuah was denying that as well. So maybe he'd be chayiv. So l'chayra, if he'd be chayiv in that case, so we have to understand Reb Shimon. So why is Reb Shimon pattering from a carbon in our Mishnah? In our Mishnah, there's a chiv knas plus boishes of pgam. If he's denying it all, then it's true he's denying knas, and knas is not mom, but he also denied boishes of pgam, so let it be chayiv for denying the moment of boishes of pgam. So what's the pshat? I'll tell you the husband of Shimon. Reb Shimon, knasu toiveya v'loi boishes of pgam. It's not that he's the ikr tvi is on knas, but he's also being teveya boishes of pgam. He's bachlal not being teveya boishes of pgam. The whole tviya is on the knas. And l'divrei chachamim av boishes of pgam hu teveya. Question is in the mind of the father when he goes to this guy, says anasto afatisas biti. Shaila is, what is he being teveya? What's his claim? Is his claim only on the knas, or does it include boishes of pgam as well? And the nafkamina would be, if he swears falsely, does he have to bring a carbon? Because he's only bringing a carbon if he denies or swears falsely about moment, which is boishes of pgam, not on knas. So if he never was teveya boishes of pgam, then he wouldn't bring a carbon. That's Reb Shimon's shita. But why would Reb Shimon hold that he's b'chalal not being teveya boishes of pgam? But my kamiflagi, what's this machloikus? What's going on over here? Omer of Papa Reb Shimon sover leishavik inish mida de kitz v'tava mida de loikitz. Psychologically, when a person makes a claim, he would rather make the claim on something which is a fixed price. It's klar, this is what you owe me. You owe me 50 shekel kesef. Shteit in the Torah before pasuk. So when I make a claim and I have to choose between making a claim over what's mefurish in the Torah, a fixed amount, versus boishes of pgam, which have to be evaluated, right? Psychologists have to get involved, doctors have to get involved. What was the pgam? How big was the boishes? Right? It's a gray area. So he doesn't choose to be teveya an amount which is uncertain. It's still gray. Rather, he chooses to be teveya only the knas. And since the teveya was only on the knas, if he makes a Shevuos sheker, he's potter, because that's not a teveya on moment, because moed beknas potter. For Rabbanos say no. Leishavik midi d'chimoide beiloi nifter. The opposite. If a knas is uncertain, hagam, the amount is certain because the Torah tells you the amount of the knas. But the fact that you'll get it, that's uncertain because you might run to Bezdin and be moida, and moida b'knas potter. So a person wouldn't make a claim on a amount which is fixed in the Torah, but that amount isn't certain that he'll get because he might have been moida and moida b'knas potter, and leave over a claim that you can't pater yourself from, which is boishes of pgam. So we go into the psychology of a person when he has two claims, right? Two separate claims. One is a knas, which is the amount is set, but it's a knas, and it can be moida, and it's not sure that you're going to get it, but at least the amount, what you're going to get, if you get it, is clear. So, on the other hand, the boishes of pgam has a maila that you can never do away with. You can never pater yourself from it because it's mom and a moida b'knas. There's no moida. That's a fact. No, the 50 shekel is a knas. That's clear. That's not a machloikas. And boishes of pgam is mammon. So that is, everybody agrees to this split.
He takes this low life to base then.
So which claim is he going after? Right?
He's going after the guy, he's not going after the money.
Oh, bullshit.
No, he wants money. He wants money. The father wants money. So Chachamim say he's going after boishes of pgam because you can never pater yourself from that because Haidor doesn't help on that. Shimon says no, he's going after the knas because that's a set amount in the Torah. The other is not a set amount yet, so he's not claiming that. So the psychology of a person. What is a person? You have to speak to lawyers. Yeah. What is the concept? How
a crook man and things, huh?
Yeah, not a crook. He's not a crook. The father is an innocent guy.
The guy that
The father, when he makes a claim, right? What's the smartest way to go about making a claim when somebody owes you two different kinds of payments? Right? Which one is better? Huh?
You go after both.
Right. It seems like this is what Rabbi Yochanan says, that the father isn't going after both for some reason. I don't know why not. There's some tazach, right?
Because it's making like a Shem and a Bari.
so what he's going after?
He's going after the Bari.
Not sure. Okay, there's rate on this, but okay. Hadrin alach Shevuos apikoden, Hadrin alach Shevuos apikoden, Hadrin alach Shevuos apikoden. Let's see if we can run through the Mishnah. Shevuos hadayonim. The sixth perik, Shevuos hadayonim. Different types of Shevuos hadayonim, right? Shevuos hashoimrim, Shevuos apikoden is one type of Shevuos hadayonim, right? They make a Shevuah, they make the shomer swear. And there's another type of Shevuah which is called the Shevuah moide b'miktsas, which Reb Shol brought up the other day. There's another type of Shevuah eid echad, right? When an eid echad comes to Bezdin and can't collect money from an eid echad through an eid echad, but you can chayiv the guy a Shevuah to be makrish the claim of the malva. But either way, there are different types of Shevuahs hadayonim. This Mishnah is going to focus on the Shevuah of moide b'miktsas, which is learned from a pasuk of Asher Yoimar Ki Huzeh v'Nikrav Balabayis Elolim. Ki Huzeh is mashma. He's moida on part of the claim. Then he has to make a Shevuah. It's called Shevuah moida b'miktsas, which is Minatayra. Says the Eilig Mishnah Shevuah Sadayonim. Hataina. How does it work? When are you mechuyev a Shevuah if you're moida b'miktsas? That is only if the taina was at least shtei kesef. Right? The taina has to be at least for shtei kesef. V'haidah, and the haidah has to be b'shava pruta. Has to be at least a shava pruta. Now, whether it has to be a shava pruta from the shtei kesef or outside of the shtei kesef, that already is a machloikas later in the Gemara. Pater also has to be from the same min that the tevei is being teveyu. From the same min you are being moida b'miktsas and kaifer b'miktsas. Keitzad. So the Gemara is going to bring an example to this halacha, the last halacha of min taina. What does that mean? Shtei kesef. Yesh lebiyotcha, you owe me shtei kesef, and the guy answers, Eincha biyodi elo pruta, right? I only owe you a pruta of nechoshes, right? Not of kesef. Kesef means it's like pieces of silver. He's potter. You know why? Because the haidah is not meminatayna. I'm being moida the nechoshes, and you claimed pieces of silver, right? What about shtei kesef a pruta, right? Yesh lebiyotcha, and then he answers Eincha biyodi elo pruta, then he's chayiv. Right, because then already he's denying Mimina Taina, which also had a pruta in it. Potter. If it's a koifer akoil, there's no shavu on a koifer akoil. This medaraisa. That's also a classic case of moida b'miktsas. You're moida in a half a mana. 50 dinar. Mona la abba biyotcha. Ein lecha biyodi elo 50 dinar. Right. So here he says that my father, before he died, he gave you a mana, and now give it back to me. My father passed away, give it back to me. Right? He says, no, your father only gave you chamishim, not a mana. Then he's potter. It's a haidah b'miktsas ataina, right? He claimed mana and he admitted to chamishim. No, in such a case, he doesn't swear. Why? Neshekomeshiv aveda. It's considered hashavas aveda. It's a choiv haba machmas aviv. So Mamela, since a chayv b'machmas aviv, right? So he could have been kaifer akoil. He could have told him it's not true at all, and it wouldn't have had a problem with being kaifer akoil because it's only eino the meyes pana bifnei bal chayvay. We assume that you're not kaifer akoil. Usually, you have to be moed b'miktsas because you don't want to have azus panam and be kaifer. Somebody did you a favor, but here, since the guy is dead, the guy who gave you the money is dead. So I wouldn't have had an issue being kaifer akoil here. So with the fact that I'm moed b'miktsas, that's hashavas aved. I don't have to swear. What about a guy says, I gave you a mana, and the nitva says, yes, I'm moidam. Next day he says, no, can I have it back? He says, I gave it to you between yesterday and today. I gave it to you already. Potter. That's called kaifer akoil. But if he's soiser his aidah and he says, I never had it, right, then he's already chayiv l'shalom because his aidah is kameya edim, and he can't be makrish, he can't contradict his own aidah. The guy says, I gave you $100, and the nitva is moida. He says, yes, it's true. And then the tevei says, don't return to me unless you have edim, in front of edim. Tevei is tevei again. He says, I gave it to you. Chayiv is chayiv neshetzorich litnoi be'edim. If there was no edim to back it up, since the teveya set the standard that you have to give it to me be'edim, so he's not neman to say, I gave it to you if there's no edim. Liter zov yesh lebiyatcha. What if the guy says, I have a liter of zov, right? Liter. Assuming liter is a liter, right? So it's a weight. Okay.
equivalent in weight to a mana.
To 100 dinner. Okay. Liter zav yesh l'biyotcha in l'chabed liter kesef. Potter. Why? Because he's claiming zav, you're claiming kesef. It's not meminatayna. Dinner zav yesh l'biyotcha in l'chabed dinner kesef. Utreis a pundius a pruta. Then is chayev a shvush akol min matbeya achas. It's all one matbeya. I wanted to bring in tonight. I have a friend. His name is Yaakov Aspen, and he once brought over Friday night to my house. He lives right around the corner. Brought over a pundian, a ma'ah, a dinner, mamish, an ancient, real ones. Yeah. So if you're here, I'll try to bring in tomorrow, Nether. Here you see that it's all min matbeya achas, even though they have different names. So therefore, if he denies any kind of nickel, quarter, penny, I guess that would be the equivalent. He asks him for $1. He says, no, you only gave me a nickel, quarter, a penny. That's all min atayner yichayev. Kor tvua yesh lebiyotcha, in chab lesach kitnes potter. Right? He says a kur, and he says a chatzikor of kitnes. Here he claimed tvua. Again, it's not min atayner, it'd be potter. What about kur peiris yesh lebiyotcha? And he says in chab lesach kitnes chayev. Because kitnes b'chalal peiris, that's called peiris. It's called min atayner. Tonech it moed lebsa'orin potter. Right? Why? Because not meminatayna. He says chitin. He's moedan sa'orim. Ram Gamliel mechayev. He says even if it's not meminatayna, you chayev a moedan mechayev and a shvuah. Hatoyin lachaveiroi bekadei shemen v'hoideloi bekankanim. So the guy says, I gave you jugs, barrels full of oil, right? And this guy said, barrels, yeah, but not oil. Adman oimer hoil v'hoideloi mixes minatayna yishova. Since he claimed both barrels and oil, and you're moida on the barrels, then that's called moida b'miktzas and you're chayiv. That's not called meminatayna. Why? Because they're two minim, and I was koifer a whole min, right? So therefore, it's not meminatayna. It's a koifer hakoil, and yeah, 1 second. And the Chachamim ein adam and Atayna. Royan is divrei Adman. Ramgul says Adman is right. Tana Kalim the Karkois. What about again? It's two different meaning. Kalim and Karkois. V'hoida b'Kalim v'kav b'Karkois. B'Karkois v'kav b'Kalim Potter. Right? It's not called a double mixtas. He's moided to one of the tainas because they're two different meaning. And the kfira on one is considered kfira on the entire min. Hoida b'miktas hakarkois. But if he's moided on the miktas karkois, Potter. That's Potter because the parsha of Moed B'Miktzas doesn't apply, the Shevuos doesn't apply by Karka, more soon. B'Miktzas Kalim, but if you're Moed on Miktzas Kalim, then he's chayiv not just a Shevuos of Moed B'Miktzas on the other Kalim, but he's also chayiv on the Karka. Why? Shanachosim, she'ein len achrayis, zoikikin es anachosim she'es nachayis l'shav alein. That's Gilgal Shevuos, that you can make him swear once he's mechuyev a Shevuos on the Kalim, which is legitimate chiyuv shvuah, then you can also roll on to that shvuah, another shvuah that otherwise you couldn't have made him swear. You don't swear on a taina from a cheresh or a shoita or a cotton. They can't be mechayev you a shvuah. You can swear to a cotton and to a hektish. L'chayra, it's a steer in Menei Bay. The Mishnah said, "Ein nishboin al tainis cotton." So how could the Mishnah finish off? Aval nishboin le cotton. Okay, that's already a stira Menei Bay in the Mishnah, and the Gemara is going to deal with this kasha. Okay, Rabbi Shul, you wanted to say something. What do you want to say?
What's the point? Somebody wanted to call you and not be part of the Mishnah. You just say, "I'm sorry, I didn't give him anything."
Yeah.
So what's the point of reporting a person? You say, "Oh, it's more than mitzvah or more than mitzvah." You say, I gave you, kesef. I said, no, you gave me a pruta of nechoshet. So it's part of Shvuah. What's the point?
Why does the Mishnah have to say that?
So the all derech of kfira. There's no more than before. I don't understand. I don't understand the reasoning behind it. After all, all patos, all of those scenarios is pato. Whatever you gave here,
half and half. The Mishnah was contrasting half and half. The Mishnah was trying to say.
Pato. So what's the point?
No, but they're not. They're not.
But after all, the part of
If
Shua,
you're moide and koifer meminatayno, you'd be chayiv.
what?
So good.